Well, good evening. Hope you're having a good Monday here. We are in a warm air advection pattern here in Texas. We've had temperatures come up to the 60s. Big change from the weekend when we were down into the teens. As you can see, the temperature anomaly map across the central U.S. shows much warmer conditions, especially on the high plains from southwestern Kansas out to West Texas. So just how warm is it? 80s. Pretty incredible. After what's been going on, we've got 82 there at Childress for a high today, 81 there at Lubbock, and I can see 86 there at Fort Stockton. So temperatures have come up quite a bit, and I don't know if you can see that off to the bottom. Yeah, well, I can't get the map any higher than that, but I can see a 101. See that way down there in the bottom left? 101 degrees there in Mexico. So there is warm air down to the south, and you know what's going to follow after that when we get southerly flow? Moisture. That's going to be coming up next. But up to the north, it's still pretty cold up there. Lots of teens and 20s up in the north part of the country. And we can kind of get an idea where that front is. Probably dividing these teens, 3-degree temperatures. So we're looking at somewhat in here. And we can trace that out to the west coast, where we've got 70s in the Mojave Desert, 67 there at Las Vegas. And that contrasts pretty sharply with these 30s and 40s in Oregon. So we're looking at a front, something like that. The large-scale picture. Still got a northwesterly flow. And I've been talking about the long wave pattern. Long wave pattern is kind of looking like this, like a ridge, broad ridge out over the Pacific, a trough over the East Coast. Then we pick up another ridge out in the Atlantic right there. So that's the large scale picture. And that puts us under northwesterly flow. So we're still able to advect cold air masses into the central and eastern U.S. But the pattern is broken up by a couple of small-scale features. We've got this cutoff high over Alaska and a series of lows. And we had a Rex block a few days ago, and that's kind of broken up. And now we've got zonal flow starting to come in from the Pacific. So that's opened up, and you can see the fast flow coming on shore right here. And as a result, California and Nevada, they're really getting the rain and wind. And I don't know if you heard the news, but there's I don't know if it's a sequoia or redwood tree out in California. It's a famous one that you could drive through. That one got knocked over in the past day or so from the strong winds. So there is tree damage out there in the forests. Yeah, some of those high winds come inland. And you can see the first plume of moisture there. It's heading out into the Rockies, and we've got another plume of moisture on its way into California. And this corresponds to a frontal system. You can see it kind of wrapped up like that, the familiar comma appearance. So I'll just draw that out real quickly. And as far as fronts, they're going to look something like, let's see if I can draw that on there, roughly like that. And then we would get a occluded front kind of coming back into the occluded low back here. And you can see the subsidence back behind the cold front. This is the dry slot. And out ahead of it, there's all the deep moisture in the lower and mid-troposphere. And that's associated with the warm sector of this system. And that's advecting quickly into California there. Okay. Let's take a quick look at the chat and say hello to everybody. I've got Sue there, and Fred, and Andrew, Kevin, and Alexi, and Ron. And Ron mentioned that tree that went down was in Calaveras County. Fred says strong downsloping in Colorado too. And Sue's asking about severe weather in southern Indiana this weekend. We'll have to check that out when we get to the GFS charts in a little while here. Now, one way we can pick out that plume of tropical moisture coming into California is the precipitable water chart. So this gives us a summation of water vapor from the surface up to the stratosphere. So running this back to earlier today, there's that first plume of moisture that we saw heading into Arizona, and there's the next one on the way. And you can kind of see how that's related to the surface fronts. There's that trough right here, indicating the cold front, and then the warm front, kind of like that there. So that's the next system on its way in. And we'll go ahead and do the frontal analysis real quick. Looks very similar to yesterday. We're expecting it to find that off the east coast here. The ridging and high pressure, that's moved off to the east coast here. Now we're under this very extensive warm air advection region. Low pressure in Nebraska and Colorado here. So where exactly is that warm front? At first glance, maybe something like that. That puts us south of this thickness banding here. And then we can track that on into the mountains and maybe something like that from New Mexico down through Arizona. And that's just a first guess there. And we can see a little bit of the Pacific system coming in there. There's that next system on its way in here. Okay. So that's our basic workup there. We can fill in the details a little bit with the surface analysis. And where would we put that front? It's pretty tough here. I would say we've got a cooler air mass up in this region. We've got northwesterly winds right there. So we're probably maybe looking at something like that. And the warm front itself, that's probably going to go back through Utah and Colorado like that. And then that will feed back towards Texas. Now, where is our warm front in Texas? That's the next question. Well, we've got 70s down there in Mexico at this hour and 76 right here in south of Del Rio. So I think we're going to probably put the front through maybe the Red River region of Texas right there, maybe from Amarillo down through Shreveport. And again, that's just a first guess. Might even go something like that. And that corresponds pretty well to what we had on that thickness chart. So that's kind of how we would be placing the fronts today. And naturally, north of the warm front, you're going to get clouds. There's a little bit of that isentropic lift as some of the moisture works up on top of the frontal boundary. And out here in our part of Texas, it's a little bit drier. You can see dew points are down in the 30s and 40s, but just off to the south, actually quite a ways. It looks like the Gulf is pretty dry right now, so we've probably got a couple more days of dry weather here. But I do know that the models are bringing in very deep moisture, and I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you some more of that precipitable water chart in here very shortly. Okay, let's see, what should we cover next? We'll just do the soundings really quickly. I'll show you the Dallas-Fort Worth sounding. looking like that. Now, do we have a frontal inversion? We definitely had one yesterday. What I see today is more like a subsidence inversion. So maybe there's been some compressional warming in the mid-levels from ridging, moving over the Texas area. And down below, looks like kind of a warm air mass, and we've got southerly winds there. So I think the front is pretty much passed through Fort Worth, according to that sounding. We can go up to Springfield, Missouri. That looks a little bit more like a frontal inversion. You can see we don't see a whole lot of drying in this layer right here. And possibly if we go up a little bit further north, yeah, Topeka there, definitely showing a frontal inversion right there. So you can kind of bounce back and forth between those different skew-T sites. And that's yet another way you can pin down where your fronts are. Okay, so I know that's been kind of dry. A lot of dynamics and visualization stuff. So we'll go ahead and move on to the forecast. There have been some changes in the winter storm forecast for this weekend, and I'll show you that here shortly. Okay, so this is the GFS forecast starting out for today. There's the warm front moving up through Texas and Arkansas, and cold front coming back through the Four Corners area. So for our webcast tomorrow, Tuesday, we're going to be looking at this. Looks like we get a bit of cyclogenesis pickup in the plains, and we've got ourselves a Great Lakes system here, with a front coming through Indiana and Michigan, and a warm front through the Toronto region. So it looks like the GFS is going for a little bit of sleet here in Pennsylvania, but for the most part, liquid precip across the Midwest, and then some showers coming around with the wraparound circulation. Then we have another push of cold air out to the west. See a big high pressure area here that's driving a front down to Nebraska and down to Wyoming. So we'll keep an eye on that for the next couple days. And here comes the next wave from the Pacific coming onto the Northern California coast right there. And you see that intense gradient. Looking at 998 millibars over the Medford area, contrasting with 1016 around Bakersfield. So that's a very tight pressure gradient, and that's going to mean strong winds through this area here. So yet more rains for that area. Then for Wednesday's webcast, when we come online and do the charts then, we'll be looking at that high pressure area from Alberta shifting southeastward and driving that front down to Kansas and then back to Wyoming. And then maybe the Pacific part of it kind of stalled across New Mexico and Arizona. However, we're seeing pressure falls out in the Great Basin area, and that's going to be important for Friday and Saturday. So moving forward to Thursday, looks like our front creeps down to the Red River region of Texas and into Colorado, and our Pacific system starts coming together here. And you can see a little bit of a cold core out over Southern California. And some of you might be aware, some of you who are in the San Joaquin Valley, when you get those cold cores, sometimes that means cold air funnels and brief tornadoes across the interior regions. I don't know if it's going to be too cold for that this time of year. That's mostly a spring phenomenon, but that does kind of catch my eye right there. So anyway, yeah, there's the next Pacific system coming inland. And you can see it moving across the Rockies on Friday. So Friday, we're going to see the cold front parked across Texas like that. Pacific system moving into New Mexico. And the GFS has kind of moved the freezing precipitation a little bit further north into Kansas. Earlier yesterday, we were looking at kind of a Oklahoma, Texas scenario. And the GFS has kind of moved that north with the latest run. What does the Canadian model have? Let's check that out real quick. Here's a GDPS forecast. It likewise kicks the front down south into Oklahoma and Texas, stalls out through about Dallas and Abilene, and it breaks out a little bit of precip around Oklahoma, affecting western Oklahoma. That's more in line with what we had yesterday. Then kind of shifting north and south from about Lubbock and Childress up to Wichita. And the Canadian model has been kind of accurate this winter, so this could very well be what we're looking at for this weekend. If I had to bet, I would probably be looking at maybe that scenario there. But in any case, both models by Saturday and Sunday converts that over to rain with a very strong latent heat release and not much more cold air advection coming in the backside. So just kind of changing over to a rain event, and then the main Pacific system comes across Texas, and there it goes right there. So we're going to see it kind of evolve more into a thunderstorm squall line type situation by Sunday. So there it is coming eastward. And that'll be moving into the Mississippi River Valley area on Monday, looks like. And after that, just looks like kind of a moderating trend and kind of mild weather across the central U.S. And a lot of the Pacific weather shifts northward to Oregon and Washington. So that's what they're going to be seeing around midweek, and then later during the week, you can see another Pacific system coming in into California around the 20th or so. And that's probably about as far as I want to go with those models. Looks like a pretty active weather pattern, and once we have a good situation to look at, we'll probably do a special meteorology lab and try to cover one of these in more detail. Anyway, I'm kind of losing my voice here, and I'm about talked out, so I'm probably going to go ahead and wrap that up there. I appreciate you all watching as usual, and hope you'll be with us tomorrow. And that's about all I got, so take care, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.